Thank you guys for being here to the 2025 Hemp Roadshow. So this is our second installment of the Roadshow, and I appreciate everybody being here. Our first stop was Memphis yesterday. We had a great turnout. Again, thank you guys for being here on this Wednesday. Now, I'm going to kind of go over, I'll give the intro for the night, for the day. Nashville's our home. We're all here. This is where we kind of call our home base. And we've got a lot of people that are here that are really important to put this together. Shannon being one of them. Thank you so much for all the hard work you put into all this happening. Now, I'm going to first introduce the team. We're Hemp Law Group's putting this on. We are Hemp Law Group in front of you, and I'm going to introduce the team. First, my name is Joey Fuson. I'm an attorney. Started this thing back in 2018, and we've been going pretty strong since. It's been a very different ride when we started this thing back in 2018 versus where we are in 2025. Alex Little, I introduced first. Alex is an attorney at Hemp Law Group. Alex is there in the tie. And I'll tell you the reason Alex is in the tie is not because he's wanting to dress up today, but he'll be on a lot of TV shows tonight. So if you're going to tune in tonight, you'll see Alex all over national news today. Alex is one of our lawyers and also one of our leaders here at Hemp Law Group. He is a highly intelligent, highly skilled lawyer. He is also super creative. And I'll tell you, we talked about it yesterday, but in this industry and what we're doing now, it takes creativity. It doesn't just take intelligence, and he provides both. He's also the partner of Lidson. Lidson is a law firm that focuses on representing high-profile clients in really complicated cases. And that's what's going to bring him tonight on the news. His partner, Zach Lawson, is here tonight. Yeah, not Alex Lawson. Zach Lawson. He is also a partner and co-owner of Lidson. Zach is somebody I've gotten to know now for the last year or two, and is also highly intelligent, highly skilled lawyer. Does a lot of stuff at Hemp Law Group, and it's a big part of what we do at Hemp Law Group. So glad to have him here today. He wasn't in Memphis, but he's here today and will be continuing throughout. Again, Lidson and what they do at Lidson is in addition to what they do here in the cannabis industry. Zach and Alex are a huge part of the legal fight that has happened the last couple of years. And we're happy to have them be the leadership here at Hemp Law Group. Great that they're here today. Now, the reason they're in the news is I think Alex said that he's now successfully obtained, him and Zach have obtained the most pardons of anybody from President Trump so far. So people be on the news with the Grizzly case tonight, so tune in. Now
you get convicted.
Yeah. Clint Palmer, if you guys have been in the hemp industry for any point in time, you guys have probably run into Clint Palmer. There's a lot of familiar faces here today that I recognize, and I know most of you either know about or know Clint Palmer. He's been a huge part of this industry since its beginning. He's our compliance director at Hemp Law Group. He's also so much more. He does a lot of interaction with our clients. He also knows more about cannabis than anybody I know. He spent 18 years researching this, plant and soil science at MTSU, molecular bioscience, PhD, just highly knowledgeable. We're happy to have him be a part of Hemp Law Group. Bill Black is here. He's just finished his studies at Vanderbilt. He's about to become one of the lawyers at Hemp Law Group. He's also a very talented young lawyer, soon-to-be lawyer, passionate about the plan, passionate about this company. He's going to be a big part of Hemp Law Group going forward. And then last, we have Kelly Hess. Kelly is the CEO and head lobbyist at the TGC. You guys are members. If you guys are members of the TGC, then you know what TGC is about and you know what Kelly's about. And she's a big part of where we are today. She's been along for the whole ride and is up there fighting on Capitol Hill for the plan, fighting through the plan, and is the heart and soul of TGC. And she's going to talk a little bit about at the end of the presentation about TGC. All right, my job today is kind of to lay the framework of today. What we're going to do, we're going to have a presentation and then we're going to have a Q&A. So we're not going to stop the presentation and ask questions. We're going to wait for the end. We're going to open up the floor and we will have a big part of what we're doing is going to be answering questions that you guys have about this new law, about the future, and about what you guys need to do with your respective businesses. Because everybody here is maybe in a different position, right? Maybe in a different part of this industry. I've been taking phone calls from people for years, and everybody's in a little different space. We have retailers, we have manufacturers, we have some producers still, and everybody's going to be needing to know the information to help their specific business. And we hope today we can provide that to you guys and further. Now, Hemp Law Group, a big part of what we do is compliance. And if you guys have known, we already started with, if you're a retailer, for example, or a manufacturer, there was no rules. There was no laws. I mean, the original laws here started with just producers. If you're a producer and grower of cannabis in Tennessee, then you had rules, you had laws at the very beginning of this back in 2018, 19, and 20. And then we've seen kind of the iteration of these laws for retailers and manufacturers. We've seen laws come into place. We've seen rules, multiple forms of rules come into place. We thought we had some changes coming. And then in one day, in one move, the entire bill was rewritten. You're going to hear today about kind of how that happened, the origin of that, and also what that means for you going forward as a business owner. We're going to talk about the new laws. We're going to talk about understanding the new THCA ban, which is a big part of kind of the gloom part of this is the THCA ban, but also we're going to try to give you guys some positive information and maybe give you some hope here, because there are a lot of things, and as Alex will talk about and as Clint will talk about, that you can do to navigate going forward and help you with that. We're going to do an overview of the three-tier system, which is new. Three-tier system is a new part of this. Licensing, product, and compliance changes. We also have ABC. If you have been in the bar and restaurant business, you may have heard of ABC or been a part of dealing with ABC, but if not, this will be new. ABC, we believe, is to be quite different than the Department of Revenue and the TDA. Okay. Now, as we talk about transition strategies, we're going to talk about some of the timeline, kind of key dates and information you guys need to be aware of, and then how we can help this Hemp Law, how we can potentially help you guys moving forward and navigate this kind of crazy time. Now, question and answer at the end.
And so, I'm going to start on the thing I'm going to talk about. That's our successes, I think. Joey was supposed to talk about those. We did be talking about Alex. Well, before, actually, in all seriousness, Joey didn't brag on himself enough. He's like an OG in the legal world. He's also by day a badass criminal defense lawyer. When you see him, he's wearing a suit. He's going to court every day. Think like Harvey Specter with no hair. That's Joey Newsom. So in the last couple of years now, we've represented a ton of hemp companies kind of across the board, retailers, manufacturers, distributors. We've handled everything. We do obviously this normal kind of compliance work, but also handle seizures, and we do check labels and all that stuff. So there's some stats up there about all that. We also were involved in the litigation when the Department of Agriculture passed or tried to pass some rules that were in our industry. We were successful in stopping that at least through the end of the year. All right, so to the crux of this, kind of what has passed, what law has passed, and kind of what it means. I think what has passed is a bill designed to line the pockets of the folks who got it passed, which is sort of how most bills are passed. In this instance, that would be the folks who is really benefiting the most are liquor distributors. They were the driving force behind this new bill. You'll see as we are talking through it that they're the big winners here. And not sugarcoat, this bill was really bad at the end of the year. And so we're going to kind of talk about how we can get through that and be creative and make adjustments. But so this slide shows you kind of what we think are probably the 4 key points to the new law. The first, I guess, already mentioned, flower ban. So now will be, starting in January, a total tea standard. So, selling flower, you probably got till the end of the year, and then that to go away. So sell it while you got it. It was really obviously frustrating. There were a lot of folks like TGC and us and lobbyists that did a lot of really good work to get that part of the bill out of the bill. And it was thrown back in the morning of by Peter Lambert and his cronies, and it passed with that in there. Right now, because of our injunction that we got against the Department of Agriculture rules, you are good through the end of the year unless something changes with that case. But on January 1, there's going to be a total tea standard, and so that stuff's out. The second point is the regulations are shifting. So as you know, if you're in the space, previously everything was under the Department of Agriculture. That's all going to be under ABC now. Like I said, this was an alcohol lobby push bill. They're throwing everything into their world. What we think that means, I think there's some positives and negatives of that. I think on the positive side, the Department of Agriculture didn't really want this. They don't really care if this industry exists. They sort of acted that way. They passed rules about stop it, and they were very anti-industry. I don't think that'll be the approach of ABC. I think they're generally more pro-industry and want the industry to survive. I think the other side of that coin, though, is that the Department of Agriculture was pretty incompetent in enforcing its rules, frankly. We've got visits from the Department of Agriculture in the last, I mean, I think they seem like they sort of knew the space. I think what you're going to find here is there's going to be probably, ABC is going to be more prepared to enforce. They're going to have more people in the field. They're going to probably develop a better understanding of the rules. They're going to have an interest in enforcement. So we think enforcement is probably going to go up. And so I think that's kind of the give and take of that change. The third, and Alex is about to talk about this more, what this bill really does, it takes our industry and tries to reinvent it in the image of the alcohol industry. And what I mean by that is right now, we have sort of a two-tier system. We have people who manufacture the products, they have relationships with retailers, and they sell to them. And the three-tier system in alcohol is manufacturers or suppliers can only sell to licensed wholesalers, and retailers can only buy from licensed wholesalers. So there's this middleman. It sounds inefficient because it is. That's not the point of this. But Alex, I'll solve this under there. He's going to talk more about that. And the last thing I sort of already talked about, we're doing server enforcement to be probably winning more enforcement. The penalties in this new bill are increased also. We'll talk more about that. THCA ban obviously is a lot of issue. Didn't go our way. Manufacturing, selling, or distributing THCA products becomes illegal after the end of the year. The total T standard also applies to cultivating, which obviously makes that very difficult, and not worth it. Possession remains legal. This didn't change the criminal code in that way, but the sales won't be. And the THCA ban covers with flower-based levels aren't really a factor. Concentration. The point is, any type of THCA product is covered by this total C standard. Hemp beverage is carved out under very tight rules. What you'll notice in this bill is things that look more like an alcohol distributor would distribute or will be in a liquor store get special treatment. And so they get, I think they get some benefits here that the products that most of you traditionally sell do not. I think that is it for me. I'm going to hand it over to Alex. He's going to talk about the new system we have to navigate.
All right, good morning, everybody. I want to talk briefly before I start about where everybody is in the industry. So if you're a retailer predominantly, can you raise your hand? All right, so the vast majority of you are retailers. Of retailers or anybody else, how many of you make or package your own products? That can include white label, but it's a pretty good number. How many of you wholesale products? I know we've got a couple. Over here. Okay. The reason those three categories matter is because you got screwed by the liquors. And I think it's really important to understand the statute and bill in the context of what it is trying to accomplish. If any of you work in liquor sales, anybody here owns a liquor store, that's easy. You have one liquor store owner, you know how difficult it is. ABC's on your back a lot, I would imagine. But the way that liquor works is, if you are a beer manufacturer, liquor manufacturer, you can only sell to one class of people, and that is a liquor wholesaler. And if you are a liquor retailer, you can only purchase from one class of businesses, and that is a liquor wholesaler. And so essentially what the liquor wholesalers have done is taken that model and imported it into that industry. Why did they do that? Because they saw their margins getting crushed by THC beverage products. So THC beverage products, for those of you who follow this should know, are the largest growing segment of sales in liquor stores. They are wildly popular. So those few liquor wholesalers who control this whole market said, we want to control him too. And so we want you to make this market the way we control. That is the way you have to look at every aspect of this bill. Because the most important thing that has changed is that now you're going to have to play in one of those three spaces. You're either going to have to be a supplier, a wholesaler, or a retailer. Only in very limited circumstances can you do all three. And in very, very rare circumstances, can you do all three in the same location. There are also much higher license costs, and particularly for wholesalers, there's a $750,000 financial requirement to show that you have $750,000 of funds or a loan or a bond to be able to sell hemp products to a retailer. What does that mean for each of you? For all the folks who have raised their hand and said, I make or resell products. And if you're a retailer, what that means is you've got all these accounts, maybe you've got this company, that company, this company, you get products from. Not anymore. Starting very soon, January 1st, you're going to have to buy all of your product from wholesalers. So that is the three-tier system. It is incredibly obtuse and inefficient, and it is done for no other purpose than to protect the profit of the middle wholesalers. Think about what it does. If you are a manufacturer, you make your own gummies, you don't get to set the price for the retail price of those products. Because that's to be set by the retailer in large part based on what the wholesaler charges them. You get to sell to one group of people, to wholesalers, there's probably only going to be 6 or 10. And you better believe they're going to include you to make sure they keep the price they pay you very low. And so it squeezes both ends of the spectrum in a really unfair way. We'll talk later about potential solutions to that, but that's how the bill is intended to operate. There are two sort of loopholes I want to talk about. One is intended, one maybe not so much. One is we'll call it craft beer tap room model. So again, because these folks who wrote this are liquor lobbyists, that's how they think. They say, well, gosh, maybe we have people who make gummies, they want to sell gummies to their customers at their location. So if you are a manufacturer of products, you can sell your own products so you can get a retail license in the same facility, so long as your facility meets the requirements for a manufacturer and for a retailer. When you think about that, again, imagine like craft beer. They brew the beer on site and then you purchase it. Those craft beer folks, they want to sell cans of that to Kroger, still have to go to the wholesaler. Same situation here. If you're a supplier at a retailer, supplier of a product, maybe you're an edible manufacturer or ready-made vapes and sell them on site to your customers. But if you want to wholesale them elsewhere, some other retailer across the state, you got to go through separate wholesalers. So there also are licensing products and compliance changes. I'll start with sort of the most obvious and annoying part is they've raised the prices for these licenses. Why have they done that? There are two reasons they've done it. One, the ABC is a much more active department. They have a huge staff of enforcement officers. They use that money to create that staff to come and inspect you and to do enforcement activity. And so partly the price is higher because they're a lot more active. The second reason is because the law is intended purposely to reduce the number of players in the industry. It is specifically there because they want less players. That's why the costs gone up. Now, on the upside, TDA licenses will be honored, we believe, until they expire. So for those of you, hopefully all of you who are licensed, you got a license last July, you probably got an email over the last month to renew your license. Do that now, because your cost is lower and that license stays good through next July. Now, unfortunately, if you are a wholesaler, you may have your TDA wholesale license, but on January 1, you don't comply with a whole host of other rules. You don't think necessarily that ABC is going to allow you to wholesale under an old TDA license. There are obviously strict rules. Let's talk about how the rules have changed. I think honestly, the rules changes are not nearly as important as the big structural change. The rules I think we all could have gotten along with, except for the ban on THCA flower. The packaging and labeling standards have changed somewhat, but not in a way that we can really want to hurt folks. Based on what we've been doing for the past year, they're very similar warning statements, ingredients, things that you're prepared for if you're doing this correctly the past year. Same thing about marketing. You can't make health claims. I think if you were our client, we told you can't make health claims for the general thing you don't want to do because you want the FDA to come after you. But obviously, no cartoons. Those requirements were there are still there. The difference is now we have ABC, which is actually a very effective regulatory body enforcing them. I know lots of folks who never saw a TDA agent, the products for a whole week. Tell you without disclosing who they are. Got plenty of clients who send us labels in the way that's totally wrong. We need to fix that. You're not going to have that opportunity with ABC. They're going to start writing citations pretty quickly. So you need to be on their game when it comes to labeling. Don't take it as just a suggestion. Finally, there's no self-checkout or vending machine sales. So there are going to be a number of changes, but the big ones are structural. You have to sort of pick your lane, decide what part of this you want to play. We're going to talk a little bit about transition. You've also got to decide if you want to stay and how you want to stay. How you want to stay in the industry, what works for you. And I will tell you today, this is not something I would have said last year. This may not be the industry for you to stay in because it may be hard. The flip side, which I'll leave you on a good note before I hand this over to Bill, is when this industry really started in 2018, 2019, and Farm Bill was announced, the early players, some of them were in this group, started to say, look, we can get an industry. They did well because they were fast movers, they found an opportunity, and they took advantage. With every change, there's new opportunities. Now they're just different. You have a different set of rules. This industry has exploded. There's a lot of people who've been in this industry. But if you remember, at the end of the day, you've got a whole state full of people who want to buy your products. We know that. We've got a huge growth. And so they're still going to want to buy good products. And if you can find a way to get any product that serves their needs, do it effectively, there's still space in this industry. You're just going to have to work a little harder to find that space. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Billy to talk about really how do you get ready for the ABC era.
The Department of Agricultural license is going to be honored by ABC through their expiration dates. That means but come January 1, we fully expect ABC to be conducting inspections, audits, and enforcement that will be a lot more stringent, more specific, and probably more widespread than what we've seen so far. Hemp flower sales, as we said, remain legal through pre-rolls. Pre-rolls, for example, we're still trying to get clarity on that. If you are selling pre-rolls, please keep track of those specifically. But please prepare now for absolutely every possible licensing and operational change that you can imagine. Fine-tooth comb for your whole operation. Make sure everything is, you cross every T and dot every I. Right? You're completely well taken care of. And you need to be incredibly compliant.
Good to see everybody here today. I see a lot of faces that are in this. It's good to see all of you today. Some people I haven't met, but I've seen, and I appreciate what you've done. So with that, let's move on to what are we going to do in 2026. So the big deal is, are you going to stay put and develop new products? Have more new products to market? Are you going to close shop, or are you going to leave town and follow up in another state and work that way? So a couple different ways you can do it. Probably the best way to do it is to have all that good data. Alex mentioned, people that have customer data versus folks that don't. If you have customer data, well, then you can lead with that and possibly be able to ship back. There's two good options for that. We can talk about that later. Reach out to us about it. But the big one is being able to track that information. So SOP style, right? So it's you need all of this information. So you need to get it as detailed as possible. So what could you do? We've got lots of cool products that are coming out all the time. I think that's where the creative mind really comes out. In fact, 2018 in hemp and what we had, beverages were just I'm going to bang nano emulsions, just a thing. So really come in the past 7 years, and even in the past few years, there's still lots of really cool products for us to make. We just got to come up. So that's where work with cool people and come with new brands, and you're going to be able to come with new products that are going to fill some of these holes. Obviously, THCA is the biggest seller. It's a lot harder to fill that hole. A couple ideas on that, but we'll talk more about that. So with the SOP zone, the big thing is having all that documentation. If you have all the product information, the batch codes, all that stuff, it's a lot easier to sleep at night if you know everything about the products. But if THCA is all that you do, it's going to be really tough to switch. So it's diversify your business as quickly as possible. More products in that you might not even consider cannabis products, pure retails, right? So you're going to have more than just cannabis. So just be ready to think outside of THCA. Now we've got a couple things happening right now that are in motion. The state just dropped the public chapter while we're sitting here, which is something we've been waiting on for a month. So once they passed the bill, it had to be signed by the Senate, signed by the House, then it went to the governor. In between all the legal action that was going down in the federal courthouse, it took longer, and then finally the governor signed it last 2 weeks, something like that. Anyways, finally got a public chapter, which means today it just got put out, which means we have like all of it in one thing instead of having a big pile of amendments, which is really, really helpful. It's also one of the things that ABC had to wait on before they could do their rules and regulations. So they couldn't start on it until they had that public chapter. They got it today. So they'll be starting on those rules and regs. There's no timeline for that. Expect them to be quicker and probably a lot better at it than ag. Kelly and I have had a couple of meetings with them. They did say they're going to be trying to make it as streamlined as possible. And like Zach said, they do historically do a good job of like trying to write rules and like regs to be supportive of the business as much as possible outside of the law. So we got probably 3 months, maybe September before we get rules and regs from ABC, and then we're going to have our public comment period, and then we have January 1st. So the timeline in between now and then, we got 6 months, but that goes by really quick when you get this old. Start making those plans now. At the same time, we're going to talk a little bit about opportunity for a lawsuit. But it is something that, if I owned a retail store, I would 100% be planning on like, if I can't have these products, what are my margins? Definitely be planning ahead, and that you're not going to be 2 months out from or a month out from January to go, okay, I have to make major changes. Go ahead and be planning for that. And then ensure that your TDA license is updated. Like they mentioned, you're going to basically get a little 6-month grace period and not have to pay that much larger fee to get a license and if you do that. Continue selling THCA products, flower, concentrates, vapes, all the way up until the end of the year. I'm just trying to keep in mind that, hey, what am I ordering and what am I selling? I don't want to be left in pile stuff in January. And so this fall is the operational transition period that I was kind of talking about. That's when you're going to really want to, if there's not a lawsuit pending and we're staring down January 1st, you need to have a plan for your business. Whether it's moving out of state, closing doors, or just offering limited products, like you need to have that plan set. Otherwise, by the time late fall gets here, you're really running out of time. Then January 1st, like I said, the licenses are still good through ag, but because the law is the law, they get to be enforced on January 1st. So even if you have a Department of Ag license, you are under the jurisdiction then January 1st of ABC. So just understand that, like, there's a major difference there between, ag's over me. They've got my license. I'm good. No, it's ag's got your license, but ABC is the enforcer. They get to show. Not necessarily kick down the door, but they have, it's well written in law that they just get to show up, basically. So Governor Lee did sign it. One of the things we're trying to do is do some work around the election cycles for the next year, try and get some of these fellows that, really screwed over the state of Tennessee up their legislature. Went too far into this thing called legislative process, and they just ignored it. So we want to get people into those elected positions that are going to do the right job and are going to respect that legislative process. Our bill had 12 amendments added to it. Sorry, Kelly, I don't know if we've ever seen a bill have 12 amendments, so that's how much work went into it. With that, support who supported us. So we've got good legislators out there. They're not all bad. I'll let you make those decisions for yourself. But reach out to your local legislators. The easiest way to do that is just throw it into the search bar, find my legislator. Tennessee's got a page for that. Don't call your federal legislators. They don't care. Call your state and local legislators. They're the ones that will actually, they get voted in on very small vote counts. They're the ones that we can actually make changes with. So contact your state reps, contact your senators, rag them pretty hard if they voted against our bill, if they voted for the Cochran Amendment, tell them why they shouldn't have. Every bit of leadership voted against that amendment except for William Lynn. So to say that they're all bad is far from the truth, because we had a lot of people from GOP that did support us in voting against that amendment. So reach out to people that did vote against it, say thank you, and they are in their off season, so you can donate. So consider doing that as well. And also support TGC. I've been working with Kelly since 2018, doing volunteer lobbying work, and there's no one else up there that does it like Kelly does. There's just no one else. We run the halls. They know exactly who's coming when they see us coming down the halls, because they know we're pro cannabis at this point. What can we do to help you out? which is that transition plan. We're helping quite a few businesses get out of state right now and set up in other states to be able to work back here. My day job is doing compliance audits for folks looking at packaging, looking at labels, visiting stores, and just really helping out with licensing and just all the little things that come with it. And really the big part about our compliance program is just getting free time with these guys. So for like, instead of paying a big retainer fee, it's a monthly fixed cost. And just 1 hour with these guys generally covers that fee because their time is so expensive. So it's a great program to be a part of. It's definitely something that we can help you out with. And when you get in trouble, you don't have to pay an extra bill. If you're already in the program. If you're not in the program, you call us and go, oh, look, we just got rated. Then you're paying a retainer. So if you get in early, then you get all the added benefits. We have a lab in our office. You can see products and I can test them for compliance. I can do the inputs, finished products. And if you're in the middle of formulation before you do a large batch, I can test those. So it's a really, really good program. Y'all can reach out to us via this QR code if you're more interested.